heard that story.
Graduated from state, he's taking a how's it go? I mean, did you encourage her or disencourage her?
Yeah, we play.
They said, we want to go law school. Okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. I'm really putting her on pressure.
David. David plugged in his laptop.
Sir.
He brought it up.
No.
We're going to have Robert De Niro outside the courthouse.
Well, I thought David was gonna try to come in late. He said something about missing part of the meeting, so I'd be glad
He
to.
told me he wasn't going to speak to it, so he'd already heard all this.
Well, let's switch places.
I don't know.
I'm moving up.
All right. So we're live now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, it's all right. It is 6 o'clock, and it is time to start our first official meeting for the 2024-25 budget for Randolph County. We're glad that each one of you are here. I think from judging from the audience, you're here relative to schools tonight, and just so happens that's what's on our agenda. So welcome, glad to have you. Commissioner Allen had a little conflict tonight with the Mental Health Board that meets here in Asheboro, and lots going on there. We, the commissioners, have had earlier meetings this year with both of the public schools here in the county, and in particular, Commissioner Allen and I have met with Will to review the budget for it. So, and this is our first meeting. We've got about 3 weeks to go, so we've got lots more to hear and work through. So I'm going to turn it over to County Manager Holden to kick us off tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Fry. After having been here 9 days, I think it's a wonderful time to present a $191 million budget. With that, here's Will. So, coming into the situation, the first thing that I was told is that this year's budget's going to look a little different. That we're facing a $3.3 million shortfall related to something that we had no control over. So this year's budget, I'm told, is going to look a little different, presenting some of the end goal gains right up front rather than trying to adjust as we get closer to the point of adoption. The chair and vice chair have met with Will and put together this budget with trying to achieve all the objectives set forth in previous years and maintain service levels at a constant level. And I appreciate Will's effort to lead all this through as, let's see, finance director, assistant county manager, whatever hat he wanted to wear for the last few months. And I will officially turn it over to Will to present this evening's budget.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll lead off by going over the schedule. Tonight you'll hear presentations from me on the county budget, and then the two public school systems and community college will do their presentations. On Monday, the June the 3rd is our regular meeting, and Trillium Health Partners will do their annual report and budget request. Thursday, June the 6th at 4 p.m., we meet with county departments. You'll hear those requests. Monday, June 10th, we'll hear from the community agencies, fire departments, and hold our public hearing. And then Monday, June the 17th is when this board will get together and adopt the final budget, final tax rates, and all the normal things that go along with that. Let's just move the vote. All right, we'll start off with our revenue outlook. We have normal property tax growth that usually gives us something to work with. This particular year, we have additional property taxes from assessments on the Toyota battery manufacturing. We have had normal sales tax growth throughout the year. However, we found out in March about this $3.3 million Medicaid hold harmless adjustment. We currently had in this year's budget about $5 million, and we were told this year will probably be about 1.7. So that's the 3.3 that we may or may not, most likely not have for next year. We may not even have the 1.7 that we're expected to get this year. So let's talk about that for a little bit. This is a little graph that shows in the light blue, it's mostly horizontal, that shows the Medicaid costs. And what we did was swap, back in 2008, we swapped sales tax, so the state would take that over. And to start with, our sales tax was below what our costs were, so that was a nice swap for us. We've been very grateful to General Assembly for doing that. But as you can see over the years, as our sales tax has grown, for a while, the Medicaid cost stayed flat. But over the past few years, as more people get registered for Medicaid, that cost has really skyrocketed. And what you see here is through 23, 24, in this very narrow gap, that's the 1.7. So the taxes that we get rebated back, or about 1.7, is what they project for this current year. If you continue the trends for both of those, you're going to see that those lines are going to cross, and we'll be back into the most likely in the position of not having any Medicaid hold harmless till things change. So how are we going to approach this year's budget? Losing $3.3 million is roughly 2 cents on the tax rate. That's a pretty significant amount of money for us. In the situation that we are in with all the things going on, with our growth issues, the conversation we had didn't really talk about how do we step back. It's how can we go forward with that 3.3 loss that we have. So we talked about the priorities, where do we want to end up? And as opposed to prior years where we made a lot of adjustments at the end, we want to go ahead and pitch what we need on the front side and a way to get there in the face of that $3.3 million loss. So we have our normal budget challenges, staff retention and retraining, we've got hiring issues, inflation's still out there, we have supply chain issues, the economy's starting to slow, which affects sales tax, and just maintaining services as we have different growth areas. So our priorities are, first of all, we need to make sure that we do a cost of living adjustment for our employees. They have worked hard. Life is getting much more complex than it used to be, and we need to make sure that we're making some changes to the salary pay plan to adjust for that. We also have a priority of educational expenses. We try to do something on continuation costs and occasionally on teacher supplements and some of the other needs. So how do you get there with that loss of revenue? We're going to propose in this budget to redirect some current recurring financial resources to the general fund for recurring expenses But that's not going to make up the whole difference, and so we're also talking about some one-time sources. Again, that's funding recurring expenditures, so we've got risk of not getting the 1.7 that we might have in this year's budget, which is budgeted for next year. But we also have to make up some of this one-time source of money. So what are those supplemental financial resources? You know, I have pitched the idea of setting aside the money that we are going to receive for Toyota and making some deliberate decisions on how that can be used, particularly, you know, growth in the schools, maybe new water lines late down the road, those types of things. Don't know that we have that luxury this year. If we want to make up 3.3, the Toyota taxes are the first step to that. That's about 1.5 that we'll get to retain. We'll talk about that more in a minute. Landfill host fees, we have for years set that aside to do strategic planning initiatives in health and well-being fund. That we're going to have to bring that into the general fund to try to make up this shortfall. And then we're going to bring in from special projects $816,000, money that's been set aside by the general fund to do different things. And as we close those projects down, we can move that money back to the general fund. So to do what we want to do creates a budget of $191,726,080. It's a pretty big jump, and we'll talk about that again in a minute. Department revenues specifically for program services, whether that's permit fees or grants specific to that department, you know, it's about 42 million. And so the difference, you know, general county revenues that we need to come up with is about 149 million. So it is balanced at 191 million. It includes the full property valuation, and the tax levy is based on the existing property tax rate of 50 cents per hundred. So we're not raising taxes to try to address the shortfall. So our main revenue source is property taxes. And as you recall, we did the revaluation this past year. You know, real estate values are frozen basically for the 4 years that we have for a reval, and next time we do the reval, we'll reassess those. State law requires us to set rates at market, and it's based on the size of the project to do a revaluation. You can't do it every year, and so you're doing it every 4 years. From what I hear, prices are still high. They're not dropping off any. So I don't know that it would have made any difference whether we did a reval this year or next year or last year. So our property tax base is now $18.2 billion. It's a 9.7% increase. If you pull the Toyota investment out, and they're just getting started, they're still in construction and progress phase, but if you pull that out, that brings us back down to about the 3.4% increase that you saw in the 22-23. So that seems to be fairly consistent. The reval just kind of changed what that growth factor was. So out of the 18.2 billion of our property tax valuation, a little over $1 billion is Toyota battery manufacturing. So our base valuation with everything else is 17.2. The anticipated tax levy on that Toyota battery manufacturing is 5.2 million. But we certainly want to pay the estimated incentives to Toyota out of that money. And so that's where the 1.571736 is the estimate for what we would get to retain that we can use in this next year's budget. So I usually show this slide, can kind of compare the growth that we've seen. In 2016, we had a $10 billion valuation, and now we're up to $18.2 billion. It's too early to have the top 10 taxpayers for this upcoming year, so this is last year's. But obviously, the Post Mom Brands, that's been our number one, will go to, I believe, number 3 now. We had the announcement earlier today from Ross stores that are going to invest. They'll be number two, but Toyota certainly will be number one for quite a long time. You can see some pretty good change last year. Some of that may have been the reval on real property, but the personal property was increasing strongly as well too. So local option sales tax through our February sales, because that's the last distribution we've gotten, we were running about over 11% stronger than last year. And that's about 7.6% over budget. The state is not doing quite that well, so we are doing much better than the state, which is good news. However, we lost Medicaid hold harmless, and that kind of ate up all of our growth. For next year, we still have the effects of inflation that's going to affect sales tax, effect from whatever growth factors we have in here. There's a lot of new housing in the Archdale Trinity area as we see more housing in other areas of the county, and those people shop here. That's a positive. Statewide, the North Carolina League of Municipalities had projected the rest of the year to end up about 2.9% higher and a 2.2% growth factor for next year. General Assembly's fiscal research had about a 2.4% growth factor for next year. Our projection to make everything work in this budget was to finish out this year at 9% and 5% for next year. So we're anticipating still strong sales tax growth in this county, but it's double what the state was projecting. We appropriate fund balance to pay for some capital outlay. That remains in the budget, $2.6 million. There's some restricted law enforcement monies, some restricted health funds, another 1.1. So in this budget of $191 million, 3.8 is appropriation of fund balance. So as a pie chart, on the revenue side, you can see where property taxes are about 47% of our total budget, and local option sales tax is another 26%. And some of the other revenue sources as well too. On the expense side, you can see how it's broken down. Public safety is over 28%, education is over 21%, human services is 20%. So those are the big functional areas of how we spend our money. So in this budget, as a priorities, we're proposing a 3% cost of living adjustment. That would cost us another a little over $2 million. We have 32 new positions that were requested, 23 full-time and 9 part-time. It was only, for the most part, when we had revenues that would pay for the positions that they were included. So most of these positions are not in the proposed budget. But the ones that had some revenue source, for the most part, those are what we included in there. And then there's 3 position reclassifications that are included. Again, there was grant funds available to pay for those. And as mentioned, we have to fund our essential department vehicles, and this is replacement. This isn't a lot of new stuff. Our growth is just replacement of existing. $2.6 million of a fund balance to keep that going. We have in the past, taken that out of the budget, but that's counterproductive because we need to get these things ordered with the supply chain issues that are still out there. Debt service. You can see the breakdown here between the school systems. We have some debt for the hospitals, some for county buildings, and some for water projects. You can see how that breaks down for the $16.5 million that's in the budget for this upcoming year. All right, for education, we're talking about city schools, county schools, and Randolph Community College. What can we do for them? Well, we found about $2 million for them. And here's the breakdown, the additional monies, how that goes. Of course, there's different categories. We're focusing on current expense, current capital, and construction capital stayed about the same, just the ADM shift. But the current expense, you can see what was requested and how much that we were able to have in this budget. Chair and Vice Chair felt strongly that we need to go ahead and make sure that we try to have something in the budget for the school systems. This is what is in the proposed budget. So student enrollment, it went up slightly in 23-24, but down slightly in 24-25. Overall, the trend has been down. Last year was the first year, up year, I think, in a little bit, but dropping back off again. Just a very small change in those percentages, and so the ADM shift between the two school systems was relatively small, 15,342. Current capital, as I mentioned, stayed the same in total, but the ADM shift there is about $1,400. And construction capital remained the same per their request. So if you take the current expense, current capital, construction capital, and the money we give to communities and schools under education, that's about 21% of our budget. So that's the total annual education funding. If you take that number and you add the debt service on school construction and the transfers to the capital projects, which that $5 million is for RCC's capital projects, it takes us up to about 29% of our total budget is for education. Takes us down to our fire districts. As you all recall, there was a strong request for last year to leave the tax rates the same, and that's what the board did. There's no fire departments asking for rate increases this year, so they want those rates to remain the same. Same for Ashburn City School and Artsdale Trinity School districts. Those rates would remain the same as well, too.
Have we had anything from the fire departments yet?
Yes, none of them had requested any
changes.
increases. We have a variety of other funds that are annual funds that we budget each year. That will be in the ordinance when we adopt. Also in the budget document is capital improvement plan. We have various projects that are nearly complete, which is good to say for a while. But we keep adding things as well, too. So the SAMS project at Liberty Elementary and Randolph High School are new for this year. We are considering new debt, and we'll talk about that in a few months when I do some projections, but we're considering some debt for those projects for next spring. But since it's so late in the year, there will not be any effect on our principal and interest payments in this upcoming year. It'll hit the year after that. So strategic planning initiatives, out of the money that was received last July, we still have about $1.2 million available that has not been committed to any projects. So that still leaves some funding for this board to make some decisions on any particular projects that might pop up over the next few months. So the July of 24 distribution that we should see is the one we're talking about putting into the budget. This is the one that was received last year that the board has not made commitments on yet. Proposed budget should be on the website by tomorrow. Haven't checked to see whether it's out there today, but the whole document itself will be out there. So that is the proposed budget. There's some risks and rewards in this budget. One of the reasons to present that now is for us all to get comfortable on the risk that's there and understand, what happens, next year. Some of the decisions that this board can make on this budget might be for 1 year, it might be for multiple years. Just depends on how some other things shake out. But it's still too soon. I think it's too soon to know what the General Assembly might do. But that was sort of the deal that was worked out. And we had a good ride there for a few years, but I don't know that it's that funding is probably not going to return. Any questions about the county's proposed budget for tonight?
Comments, questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
All right. Ashburn City Schools.
Good evening, Chairman Fry and Commissioners. We'll kind of run through our presentation rather quickly here this evening. I just heard a great presentation from Will, and looks like we're just going to go through this process here. So a couple quick things. We try to always share a little update on some of the things that are happening in our school district. I was with you, had the opportunity to be with you earlier this month to talk about our middle school project and the great resources you have helped to make happen for us in that process. And I spent some time talking about Ashburn City Schools, so I won't do as much of that this evening, but very proud of the work that we're doing. It's been a tremendous year. We are, in case you don't know, our students are heavily involved in their annual assessments this week and next week, and we've had some of our AP exams and so forth the last couple weeks. So it is that time of year, and we're also looking for ways to celebrate our young people and have a variety of activities that lift up the great work that they have done, our staff has done all year this year. Do want to remind you, and you're certainly invited, Friday night, June 7th at 7 o'clock at Lee J. Stone Stadium. We will have our graduation. Going to graduate approximately 350 students, so we're excited about that as well. But this very day, earlier today, my team and I, as we do each Monday, we meet, well, it was Tuesday because of the holiday, but we meet at the start of each week and just talk through problems and possibilities. And one of the things that we discussed, again, is continuing to hone in our vision and our focus in terms of our strategic plan, in terms of our data, in terms of where we look to go into next year. And a couple of points came up that I just wanted to share with you. We're continuing to look at ways to provide a very clear vision for our school district and certainly our community, and to make decisions that are student-centered with clear vision and clear goals. We're ambitious about our instruction and the learning taking place in all of our classrooms and all of our buildings, and we're striving to build a culture of support and high expectations with a focus on each and every student and the whole child. And then we've really tried to move the needle this year with authentic and meaningful partnerships with our business community, with our various advisory groups, with our faith community, and working to make decisions that are 100% student-centered in every single way. So very proud of my team. I have a couple team members with me this evening. I'll make mention of them. Mr. Anthony Woodyard is here. He is our Director of Communications and Innovation. Ms. Carla Freemeyer is our Chief Human Resources Officer, and Dr. Wendy Rich, I'm butchering some of our titles, but she's our Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum Instruction. But proud of our team, our entire team in Ashburn City Schools, but proud of these folks behind me. So in terms of what we're asking for, you saw some graphs and charts that we'll put up there. So we're asking for $346,000 in terms of our continuation budget. None of this is a surprise to you. We've lifted this up to you starting in February, but our continuation budget, we're anticipating increases in state salaries as well as increased benefit costs for retirement and health insurance. And these changes will have an impact on our current expense budget with an estimated increase of $346,000. Additionally, we're asking for $319,000 for an expansion item on our budget for local current expense funds. We're hoping to increase our supplement by 1% just in order to recruit and retain high-quality staff in a very competitive market. So that's a hope as well. In terms of our local current expense, our total request for the current expense appropriation is $7,587,413. This request includes the $346,000 for continuation costs and the $319,000 for expansion costs. And this request is $665,000 higher than the appropriation we received for this current year. And as always, we'll just mention this as well tonight, we appreciate the county's continued support with the supplemental tax rate, and we're asking that it stay the same for next year at 11.53 cents per $100. I try to often give you a capital improvement update as we plan for 2024-25. Again, want to say thank you for the way you support our facilities. This slide shows our capital improvement plan for next year, for the 2024-25 year, and these are a list of projects that we've lifted up to you previously this year, and you can see how we plan to utilize those resources. In order to complete the request listed on our capital improvement plan, we're requesting $1,080,777. This is the exact same request for funding that you provided in the 2023-24 school year. This is a snapshot of our future capital improvement plans. You know, you're very familiar with our 10-year plan. Again, this is what our projections look like for the next school year and 5 years beyond. We're constantly continuing to evaluate the needs of our facilities each year. And this isn't a surprise to any of you, but I feel like I need to mention it. We had an unexpected large repair at McCrary Elementary School at the very beginning of the school year. As unexpected things occur, we pivot and we adjust as needed. And Will, I did notice in one of the slides, there seems to be a carryover of like 1.2 million that maybe we could work that out somehow, but I'm joking, kind of. But I mentioned this to you on May 6th, so this is just a very quick, very brief slide. Thank you so much for approving the project budget for South Ashburn Middle School renovation project. With your support, we were awarded the needs-based school capital fund grant in the amount of $29,728,490. We're in the midst of that design work that's happening right now. It's going to take about a year to complete. We're looking to actually begin construction almost exactly a year from now in May 2025 and completion around July 27. This renovation project will add ADA compliance, additional cafeteria space is needed to support our students, as well as needed infrastructure upgrades to HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. Again, I could stand here and talk for a very long time, and I know you don't want me to do that, and I don't need to do that, but we are very, very pleased with the school year that we've had. We're very pleased with the work that's been happening in Asheboro City Schools. Absolutely could not do it without you, and we are very, very grateful for everything that you give us and anything you give us, and we want to be great partners, great stewards of the resources that you give us, and I hope you will celebrate with us on June 7th at the conclusion of another great year in Asheboro City Schools and continue to look towards the future. So thank you for the opportunity this evening. I'll certainly take any questions or anything that you'd like to lift up.
Questions, anybody?
All right. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Dr. Gainey, you're up.
Good evening. I just want to say thank you for letting me present tonight, and I'm just thrilled to be the superintendent of Randolph County School System and represent 15,039 great children, 2,264 wonderful staff members who do great work every day, and great communities throughout our school system that support our schools. Tonight, I do have several staff members I want to recognize with leadership of the school system: Marty Trotter, our finance officer; Andrea Foxworth, assistant superintendent for HR; Larry Chilton, executive director of maintenance, facilities, and transportation; Edwina Ashworth, executive director of administrative services and driver's education; Tammy Laguerre, interim executive director of curriculum instruction; Sheena Creech, interim executive director of curriculum instruction; Amber Ward, our public information officer; and Beverly Fowler, who sometimes my son says, she's the real superintendent, you're number two. So Beverly is with us tonight. So at any rate, I want to just kind of get organized what you have tonight from us. You have our budget book, and you also have our, a copy of my PowerPoint. So if you would, I think that might be my phone. All right. I thought I had on vibrate. In the budget book, just want to talk to you about what's in there. You have Fund 2, current expense, Fund 4, capital outlay, Fund 5, child nutrition, Fund 7, AT tax, and Fund 8, state and federal grants. What you don't have is Fund 1, state money, and Fund 3, federal money, and they're not in there. And I just want to note that my focus tonight will be on Fund 2, current expense, and Fund 4, capital outlay. And I also want to point out, nothing I talk about tonight is new compared to what we talked about on January 8, 2024 in our joint meeting. But before I get started, I just think you need to know where we go with the budget process. There are some themes that are involved. The first one is we try to push the dollar figure from one year to the next down if we can. And if we can't, we at least try to make sure we're in a reasonable and similar range. Another thing we do, we work very hard, is to be consistent. If I was in your spot and a superintendent came up here and asked for something one year, didn't get it, and you never saw it again, I'd question whether they ever really needed it. This isn't a shopping spree for the Randolph County school system. So if we don't get something that we asked for this year in our budget, we're going to bring it back. We're going to be consistent, because I think that's a position, puts you in a position to be successful in the public eye, and us too, as we're dealing with public monies. And in the end, one of the things I think that we're getting away from every day in leadership is saying thank you. We want at the end to say thank you for the great work by you and our board to put a budget together, and it may be for increased funding. It may be for maintaining our funding level, tough budget times, or it might be for decreased funding, but it being minimal in tough budget times. So want to run through a couple of things with our budget right now. We have two sides of the house, as you know, current expense and capital outlay. So we have 4 current expense requests this year. And this is one of the things that really makes me excited when we deal with budgets with you every year. You understand this. You get this. If we don't get continuation costs, our first current expense request, we're headed for a budget cut right there. You could go to any of our current expense requests and fund those. If this one doesn't get funded, we're behind the 8 ball right now. So the first one up there, $732,000 continuation cost. You'll see it probably every year. I'm the superintendent. I don't think you'll ever see it from anybody else who might be the superintendent years down the road. They should always bringing you this. First thing is matching insurance increase. That is, we project that to be a 7% increase, $91,000. Second one, matching retirement increase. We project that to be 6%, $180,000. Legislative salary increase, we're looking at a 4% increase, $186,000. Charter school payments, we're looking at losing another 100 children, and I'll talk to this in a minute. The charter schools next year were projected that, and that would be $148,200. And then liability, workers' comp, unemployment, and property insurance increase, 5% increase, $69,000. And then energy, water, garbage, fuel, which I call our utilities, $68,000 increase. Now, I want to go to the first 3. The first 3 items are for our locally paid employees, which includes our facilities and maintenance department. There may be some as good as our facilities and maintenance department, but no one has one better than us. No way. These guys are great, and the state gives us no money for those positions. So that's those first 3 items. We have 195 locally paid employees. There's custodians, there's some clerical, but I just want to point out a big group of that is our facilities and maintenance department, because they're all locally funded. Next thing, charter school payments. Another thing I appreciate about this Board of Commissioners is you get it. So Stephen Gainey understands that if student X, Y, and Z are in a charter school, I shouldn't keep the money that the state gave me or the local monies. But it's not a one-for-one, dollar for dollar when a child goes to a charter school. So there's 2 reasons why we ask for this money. When kids leave us, they don't always come from the same school or the same classroom. But when we lose about 24 students, the state pulls a position from us. We can't true that up because they could have come from 24 different schools or 24 different classrooms. So which school or classroom loses a teacher? That's not how it happens. So we have to absorb that. So there's a budget cut that people don't see. Also, when homeschool and private schools children have one of our addresses and they decide to go to a charter school, they come by and get local and state money we didn't have to begin with for them. So there's another budget cut. So by mid-year, we had lost about $2.3 million in local money with kids going to charter schools. Because this year we lose $1,482 per child in local money when they go to a charter. Now, I believe there's a right environment for every child. So this is not a negative about charter schools. This is just the reality of our budget. Just so you know, of our Randolph County tax dollars, 242 kids, last time I looked, were going to regular charters outside the county. So $358,000 plus of Randolph County tax dollars are going to charter schools outside the county.
How many?
358,000,
How many students?
242. Also, we have right now 42 children in one of the state's 2 virtual charters, and so we're $62,000 of our local money is going to those charters. So, just like to make sure we see the whole picture and everybody understands that, because there is a big funding issue with this. Also, the insurance premiums, the state gives us no money for insurance premiums. All that comes from the money you guys give us. And right now, we're paying about $1.297 million for insurance premiums. One of the big things out there is cyber liability insurance. We have a cyber liability insurance policy. It's not our biggest. Our biggest is workers' compensation insurance, but cyber liability is one that is growing, increasing importance every day. The next current expense request we have is one that's pretty near and dear to me. I know the sheriff was here, but this one is, when I think about this one, we got to be better teammates with the sheriff's department. And you helped us this year, and we need more help to keep moving. So this is about the 13 middle school and high school SROs. It has nothing to do with the 4 elementary SROs, because when we started them back in January of 23, we went ahead and put them at market value. And we had a separate MOU for them with the sheriff's department. We put them at market value, which is approximately $59,500 per officer. But here's what I want to tell you. For 10 plus years, we weren't paying close to market value in our MOU for the middle school and high school SROs. We were paying the equivalent of $42,692 per officer. So you can see there's a difference. 59 and 42 is a big difference. You helped us get it to $46,692 this year. This $52,000 will help us get those 13 officers to $50,692. We're going to keep moving to get to the market value. They're great teammates of ours, and we've got to be better teammates. We can't expect the sheriff's department to keep at that $42,000 or that $46,000 cut. And we also, as a school system, we can't true it up overnight at the tune of $166,504. So we appreciate your help last year on this. We need your help again on this. That's our second current expense request. The next item is supplement increase for all employees, 1%, $1.2 million for all employees across the board. We've got to work on this. I'm going to speak to our teachers, because the teacher supplement's the one that sticks out the most. I mentioned this January 8th. We need to get our teachers to 10% sooner than later, as quick as we can. And I know you're trying to help us. And you have helped us. We moved the supplement for the first time in 16-17, and we got the whole percentage point. We accomplished that. 21-22, we've done some other things, Mr. Fry, along the way. We've done some special things for classified employees. We appreciate that. Our classified employee supplement is very good now, 5.25%. We've got to get that teacher supplement up. Those principal supplements have to continue to rise, because everybody, as Dr. Woody just said, are competing for the same people. And it's not all about compensation, but then it has a lot to do with that. So we appreciate any help you can give here. Again, a 1% across the board is going to be $1.2 million. So that's our third current expense request. And then our last one's a new one. You haven't seen this one in the previous 10 years. This is my 11th budget I've presented to you. And this is special transportation costs. And this is something, so if I was to tell you where our deficient funding is at the state level, and I'm not saying anything anybody hasn't heard from me in the past 11 years, it's textbooks, EC, transportation, and technology. Okay? Now, our job is to take care of students. And one of those 4 is transportation. And this, every year we get to the end of our budget and we're to close it, transportation's right there, trying to close it. We drive a lot of miles. I'm going to speak to that in a minute. We drive a lot of miles every day, but we need some funding with transportation, and so we're asking for some help here. This special transportation is for EC transportation, homeless transportation, and foster transportation, and a program we have called Social Emotional Learning Program. That's a new market. And just to give you a point of reference, in 21-22, we spent $432,000 on this special transportation loan. This is using cabs. Just mainly it's the cab service. Okay? Last year, 22-23, we spent $786,000. This year by mid-year, it was only $167,000. Now, I tell you that because when I say that, somebody's going to react to me somewhere and say, but we gave you money last year. You did. State did. They gave us $52,000 towards this in 22-23. That was for homeless and fosters. Better than we didn't had anything in the past for that. And this year they gave us $88,000 for homeless. But when you start comparing 88 to these dollar figures, you can see it's off. So any help you can give there, we appreciate it. This is taking care of students right here. If staff's taking care of students, doing what we need to, then I'm going to be all for it. But it also it is a business issue and a budget issue that we have to be mindful of. The next area I want to go to is capital outlay requests. So we have 4 current expense. Now let's go to the other side of the house. Our total capital outlay request this year. Now, Mr. Holden, when we asked for capital outlay here, this is about what was our 9-year facility upgrade repair plan, which we're in year 10, so I now just call it our facility upgrade repair plan. And I'm going to speak to this in a second because I'm very proud of this. This is one of those things, when it's all over for me, I'm going to say, if we did anything right, we did this plan right. We did a lot right between the 2 boards and our staff and your staff. So, but capital outlay requests, what are we asking for the facility upgrade repair plan? 0. Second year in a row, we're not asking for any additional monies. We started out, we're now up to $950,000 in recurring money with our facility upgrade repair plan. And a lot of people don't realize they've seen the windows replaced, they've seen the doors replaced, the bleachers replaced. That account was 0 in 13-14 because it didn't exist. We came to the Board of Commissioners that time with a plan. I have Larry Chilton back here, Marty Trotter. They put the plan together with staff. I remember one time I was talking to a group and they said, how'd you come up with, they're asking about a different kind. They said, how'd you come up with it? I said, I talked to my staff and asked them to put something together. And that's how the 9-year plan started. Marty, Larry's staff started estimating where all, I think Ray Kaiser was involved in that because that was our first year. And we came up with what were we going to do each year and what did it cost. So at this point, we're at $950,000 in recurring money from you for what I call the facility upgrade repair plan now. And we're going to drive on. We revised the plan, Mr. Holden, back in January of 19, and we not only looked at years 6 through 9, we added years 10 through 18. So it really, if you want to call it anything, we can call it the 18-year plan if we want to. But we don't have we do not have a capital outlay request this year for that plan, and I credit that to a bunch of great staff members led by Larry Chilton, Dale Brinkley, Marty Trotter, people watching what we have and not overextending what we can do and making sure we do what we have to do versus what we want to do. And when we have opportunities to do things we want to do, they hit the gas pedal when we have the funding. So, and that revised plan back in 1920, the first year, one of the things I was most proud of is staff came to me and said, we don't have any HVAC in this plan. We've got to do something because May of 18, the chiller system went out at Eastern, and July of 18, it went out at Randolph High School. And that's what caught our attention. So I'm very proud of that plan. I guess we'll call it the 18-year plan, but I don't know. We're going to keep rolling. So what are our total requests? I want to talk about this just a minute. And so that's a pretty big total request there. And I'm very conservative, and I know this is public money. But I want to point out one thing. $2,084,200. It's taken us 10 years to get back here. The first budget request I made, the total for 14-15 was $2,071,080. So 10 years later, we've worked, y'all have worked, we've gone where you could go with us. It's been some tough budget times, I know that, and I respect that tremendously. And we've tried to keep it in a similar range. And one of the things that was said in the article, one of my first years here, I loved it. Kathy Keys wrote it. I said something about, we've stuck to the plan that's based on trust and transparency. And I think we have. Us collectively, you guys, our board, and our staff. So as I close, I just want to say a couple things because I know maybe some people are listening, but we run a big business and you know it. Some people don't realize how big it is. But just to have one day of school, $1,073,973. One day of school. One day of lunch, $67,943. One day of lunch. We drive 10,000 miles a day on buses. We buy 7,400 gallons of diesel gas every 3 days, which is essentially twice a week. And this is the one that always grabs me. Those others grab me. They're pretty big, and I probably could figure maybe not that high. But transportation spends $16,000 a day, not counting any salaries that are paid. This is a big business, and I appreciate that you get it, because not everybody does around this country. School systems are a big business, and kids are dependent on us every day. And we have to show up every day with the resources and with our arms open for them. The longer I do this, the more I realize that it's highly likely for many kids, one of their favorite places in the whole world is the school they go to every day. They may not tell you that, but you just watch them and see. That doesn't mean that home's not a great place or neighborhood's not. It just means one of their favorite places is, in fact, school. So I just want to end with this. Again, nothing you have I've shared with you tonight is different from January 8th. I love that January meeting. Y'all know that. Mr. Allen gives me a hard time. It's my favorite day of the year. It is. Because I wanted to be the superintendent somewhere where we could have the elected officials all in a room and talking and get out in front of things, which I think we've been able to do the last 11 years. I also want to remind you of our commitment from my staff. We are going to build and maintain a positive relationship with you and your staff. And it's going to be based on trust and transparency. And, you have my respect. This has been the ride of a lifetime for me in this role. And I promise you, and Mr. Holden, I can promise you this, we're never going to ask the commissioners for anything we don't need, and we'll always use every dime we get from the commissioners wisely. I'll commit to that because I know I have the staff. This leadership team behind me is wonderful, and we're all on the same page with what needs to be done with public money. So that's all I have for you tonight, Mr. Fry. Any questions for me?
I would say you have proven that since you came here, Dr. Gainey. I do have a question. What's the state doing for, or I know the charter school situation, what are they doing relative to teacher pay, et cetera, other requests you have with the state?
We're here in that same range of what we're talking about with, I know the governor's put his budget out. We're hearing different things. I'd say that range would be good if it goes to 4. I hope it does. A lot of times, just to be quite honest with you, Mr. Fry, a lot of times when we get in, back, I'd say earlier in my career, I'd watch the session the whole time and you think something's going through and you watch it all summer, right, and then it doesn't go through. So I spend more time watching what y'all are doing because, y'all are our immediate team, other than the group I work with. And so I've kind of, as time's gone on, got more to what happens in the end. So, you hear a lot out there. You heard the governor, I think he gave a teacher raise. I'll tell you this, and it's, I know I said when I was talking about the supplement increase, I said teachers. I'm going to go to teachers because that's the one that resonates. But we need the teachers, and we need the principals, and we need the clerical staff, and we need the custodians. That's why when you see us ask for a supplement increase, 9 times out of 10, it's across the board. And so anything they do for our staff truly deserves. And we're always going to fight for that. It's just as you see right here, you see what 1% cost, and I've heard figures of what X number of percent cost across the state. I get that. But we've also got to make a decision on, what do we want kids, what do we want their experience to be in school? So when they come out, they have successful futures as adults. We had that that was done for us, and I think we'd have to return the favor. And it's just like some of the superintendents and mentors I have. They never asked me to say thank you to them. All they asked me to do was try to pay it forward the rest of my career. And you don't forget those things. And that's just like what was done for you. It's time to do it for kids. And that's what we should be doing every day. Anything else?
Anything else? Thank you, Dr. Gainey.
Thank you.
Very much. I guess we're moving along with our school projects, Dr. Gainey, our 2 school projects, our buildings.
We're looking for land right now, but I'll see you Monday night.
All right. Okay, Randolph Community College, Dr. Shaw.
Good evening, Chairman Fry, Commissioners, Mr. Holden, congratulations again, and the rest of the team. It is my honor and pleasure to present tonight's for our request. Of course, as my colleagues mentioned, it's the same issues that we're facing that the rest of you and any owner of operator of organizations will have. So thank you again. As we start, I want to mention a little bit about, you have a spreadsheet with details of our request, but I wanted to make sure that you understand where we're coming from and why this request. It's we have added facilities, and to run those, we need more people. One question was that when we opened the Allied Health, that you see how nice and beautiful it looks right now. If people don't take care of it, it's going to look like buildings that you will not be proud to bring and have meetings like we had last week. So the option was that, okay, what do we do? Do we take somebody from grounds and make them to a technician and say, okay, you go take care of this, and you saw our other facilities that do not look at the par with what you expect. The state is giving raises and COLA adjustments to our employees, and each time we have been making sure that employees that are on county dollars are getting at least the same raises. The college has been eating this cost for the past 2 years, 3 years almost. And when you look at the Toyota, there's $1 billion coming in and out. Toyota has a lot of requests to us. We have at least 4 employees of Toyota that are housed on our campus, and we have been renovating facilities and spent at least $300,000 in places that they're housed now, and they're bringing their equipment. The college has never asked for that. And we want to make sure that each time that we needed something, a lot of things have been moved around from the college, from the state dollars to county dollars, and we want to make sure that everything is nice, neat, and clear for now, for sake of transparency. And as I mentioned, since 2021, the college has not received any increase in our budget. 3 years ago, I think we received about $200,000. That's it. And as you know, the expectations for the college have been raised. You want your college to look the best. You want to look like the best college, community college, instead of North Carolina. And we are up to it, but we're going to need people to do it. So in reality, for us, if the number looks a little bit larger than what you're used to see for RCC, is because we're considering this a true-up year for us. So the summary of the spreadsheets that you have received, it's first of all, again, like my colleagues, we are extremely grateful for all you have done and you're doing for the college in the budget during the good times and the bad times. So for us, again, the improvements, the cost of doing business is increased. So each time that we repair, when we do something, it's costing us more. That's part of our request. And that's why we have $172,000 for the improvements of the facilities like the ones for Toyota. And we have contract workers also to clean the campus, to keep all our 3 campuses and facilities very much the standards that you need. We're asking for $194,518 for that. As you know, that the state has given almost 7% increase just this year. We want to make sure that every employee gets the same. And also the cost of insurance, COLA, and everything has gone out. That's the $247,496 for it. There is a lot of employees that they get paid with extra dollars that the county only can pay because the state salaries are fixed, and that's the part that we're asking for $183,658 for those for the VPs and the director's salary complements. And part-timers, as was mentioned, part-timers need to be competitive. As far as our pay rate, we're asking for $21,332. So the grand total is 819. And if you divide it by 3, it's about $270,000. So in reality, our increase for this year would be about 270 if we had received the funding request for the past 3 years. So with that, I want to say thank you. As my colleagues, we are very grateful for everything you have done for us. This thanks is on behalf of our faculty, staff, students, and everybody that we serve, from our partners sitting right behind me, and also for the businesses and communities that we serve. Do you have any questions for me?
Was there any discussion with Toyota cost sharing or?
Well, so far, their position has been that you all made the promise to us, and the funding is there, as you know, for the training. But I have mentioned that so far I have not received a dime from Toyota, and Sean knows that directly. The college is in good shape, but those buildings that you see, you know, when you go to the training center, it didn't get that way. Mr. Holden, when he was walking around, he saw that they're not up to par, to say the least. And we need help to get them there.
Are you underway with the funds we approved last month for your projects? And
The projects, yes, there is trucks everywhere. People are power washing. There is asphalt, and everything is going on. We appreciate that.
very good. Questions, commissioners?
Appreciate the work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
We
Shaw.
appreciate it.
Thank all of you who participated, those of you who came tonight to support your presenters. And as I said at the beginning, this is our first official meeting in the budget process. Quite a long ways to go, but you've made your points, and we'll see where we go. General Assembly's still in session down there and subject to do anything at any time, so we'll be following that as well. But thank all of you again. Any other business before this board tonight? Do I have a motion to adjourn? It doesn't require a second. We are adjourned, folks. Thank all of you for coming.
sorry if you're disappointed. I went as fast as I could.